Let's see how we can solve equations where we have an unknown on both sides of the equation. For example, 6x plus 3 is equal to 4x plus 9. To do this, we isolate the variable by using opposite operations. The thing that is different about these types of equations is we have to decide how we're going to isolate the x variable. We have a 6x on one side and a 4x on the other side. And what we're going to do is we're going to decide to do the opposite of one of those. In this particular case, I'm going to decide to do the opposite of adding 4x, which is subtracting 4x. And I'm going to do that on both sides of the equation to keep things balanced. Now let's see what happens visually. This is my 4x on the right hand side of the equation. I get rid of that. And now I get rid of 4x on the left hand side of the equation. Doing that, we can see that on the left hand side of the equation we now have 2x plus 3. And on the right hand side of the equation we are left with just 9. Now this is a type of equation which is more familiar to us, and as before we're going to isolate the x variable. In this case I'm going to do that by subtracting 3 from both sides. Let's see how this looks visually. Here's my 3 on the left side. I take those away, and I need to keep things balanced by taking 3 away on the right hand side of the equation. What are we left with now? On the left side we have 2x, and on the right side we have 6. I know now to get just one x I have to do the opposite of multiplying by 2, which is dividing by 2. I do the same on both sides. So dividing 2x by 2 looks like that. Dividing 6 by 2 looks like that. And at this point I can now see that to get my answer I look at one of those groups, and in this particular case the solution to the equation is x is equal to 3. Now here's a second example for us to consider. 20 subtract 2x is equal to x plus 5. Once again, I have to get the x's just on one side of the equation and my constant terms, the numbers, on the other side of the equation. Now one way of doing this is to look for the lowest value of x and get rid of that first. In this case, the lowest value of x is the negative 2x. So I have to think, what is the opposite of subtracting 2x? Well, the opposite of subtracting 2 is adding 2. So the opposite of subtracting 2x is adding 2x. Algebraically, I would add 2x to both sides to keep things balanced. But what does that look like visually? Well, let's add 2 x's to both sides and see what happens. On the left side, the 2x combines with the negative 2x to form a 0 pair, whereas on the right hand side the 2x forms with a 1x to give us 3x. So now on the left hand side of the equation we have 20, and on the right hand side of the equation we now have 3x plus 5. So our equation now becomes something a bit more familiar. 20 equals 3x plus 5. All I do now is isolate the x terms on the right hand side of the equation, and I do that by doing the opposite of adding 5. That is subtracting 5. And to keep things balanced, I do that on the left hand side of the equation as well. So what does that look like? Well, I'm going to take away the 5 from the right hand side of the equation, and I'm going to take away 5 from the left hand side of the equation to keep things balanced. Looking at what we have left, we can see that on the left side we have 15, and on the right side we have, well, we just have 3x. To get just one x, what I need to do now is divide both sides by 3. Let's see what that looks like visually. I'm going to take my 3x and split it into 3 equal parts. And I'm going to do the same with my 15. I'm going to split my 15 into 3 equal parts. And once we've done that, we can see that one of those parts will give us our solution for our equation. And in this case, we can see that x is equal to 5. Now, a useful thing to do is to check your work, and that is to consider going back to your original equation, 20 minus 2x plus 5. 20 minus 2x equals x plus 5. I'm sorry. What would happen when we substitute our answer of x equals 5 into that equation? Well, let us consider the left side and the right side of that equation. On the left side, we have 20 minus 2x. Well, we know x is 5. So this now becomes 20 minus 2 times 5. That's just 20 minus 10, which equals 10. So with the value of x equals 5, our left side of our original equation is equal to 10. Let's look at the right side. In our original equation, it was x plus 5. Let's substitute our answer of x, which is 5, into that. It now becomes 5 plus 5, and that also equals 10. Now this is good because since the left side equals the right side, we know that our answer of x equals 5 must be correct.